After this past weekend's loss to Ole Miss, many of you are asking the question, why didn't Bryan Harsin get fired?
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Happy Charlie Tuesday to all who celebrate, as we are joined by Auburn message board legend Charlie 5, live from Barberitos. And a lot of folks are asking, Charlie 5, excuse me, I'm getting choked up before we even get into this. Why didn't Bryan Harsin get let go this weekend? What are you hearing? What are your initial thoughts? A lot of Auburn fans upset about this.
Sure. Look, I get it. I was on the, I kind of felt like the bye week was the perfect time. It was it was going to happen. There's no way we're going to let it keep going. But, the more and more that you think about it, and the more and more you really walk through the scenarios of what does it help? What does it hurt? And the logistics behind what happens after he's gone. The more I think about it, I don't really know that there's really any significant benefit whatsoever to get rid of him before, later in the year. You say, oh, what about the coaching search? Well, we've already talked about this. Him being here is not stopping anybody from talking about who's going to be, or talking to future prospective coaches. Sure. Recruiting. Hell, recruiting looks like it's picking up. It's getting better. We had the commit from Clay Whedon. We got a couple of other linemen we're talking with. Ruben Baines getting crystal balls and predictions left and right. 4-star defensive end from Miami, committed to Miami. Just all kinds of positive momentum there. Then you got the portal period that Lindsey talked about. And all these other scenarios that people are pointing to, I get it. Like Wisconsin it seemed like they got the interim bump. Arizona State seemed like they got the interim bump. Georgia Tech. But the thing is, a lot of these guys that are running the teams now could be possible prospective head coaches of those teams.
Sure.
We won't have that. Okay, I don't know that there's a scenario where the head coach and both coordinators are gone, and you just promoted a bunch of guys that are very young in their coaching career to be able to run a team through a rest of 6 games left in an SEC schedule. So the more emotionally I want it done. I know a lot of you probably want it done emotionally, but when you really think about it, that's about all there is to it. It's just
do you think if there was a full-time AD in place, would he still be here?
No, because I think the goal, the whole what we were told all along, is that they would want to fire him before the new AD came. So now,
do you think that's still true?
No, I don't. I don't think it's true.
I mean, surely there'll be an AD before the end of the season, right?
I think there could be an AD before the end of this week. So okay. I think that's probably getting pretty close too. So
you think it's Hartwell still?
I don't. He's the one I want it to be. Let's just put it that. I want it to be that guy. But again, I think
Utah State.
The only thing I feel like you gain, is just that emotional rip the Band-Aid off and start healing. And then you kind of feel like you get to cheer for the team instead of living in this sort of purgatory of,
It's weird.
It's like a purgatory feeling when you watch these games. But I think that's pretty much the only benefit you're going to get is like an emotional benefit. There's nothing ancillary to the program that it helps at all.
Well, I think emotional benefit is a benefit, though.
It is.
And you'll hear from John Samuel Shenker, Auburn tight end and captain, later in the show today. But I asked him about that. I asked him, hey, what do you say to the folks that say that Harsin has lost the team? And spoiler, he thinks it's crap. And so stay tuned to hear his answer on all of that. But I'm there with you. I'm actually a little surprised to hear you kind of come around to that, because we disagreed on this like a week ago, I think. But
maybe a little
the whole down 21-0 and then them fighting back to tie it up. I know they lost by 2 touchdowns, but I was really impressed with that. I mean, Ole Miss is just a significantly better team. But
I'll tell you this: I wouldn't be shocked to see them drop the next 2 games. I was very blown away at how terrible their defense is. And I think
it's bad.
When I went and looked back at their schedule, it's the first 6 or 7 games were extremely masked by poor competition. When your 2 conference games are Vandy and Kentucky, whatever you want to say about Kentucky, it's still Kentucky. And then Auburn, and
Kentucky's a good football team.
They'll win about 7 or 8 games. But our backs averaging 8+ yards a carry. That's pretty bad.
And it didn't matter who it was. And it didn't matter what kind of scheme. Justin Ferguson's film breakdown at the Auburn Observer, it was kind of fascinating. It's like no matter if Auburn had 2 tight ends blocking, 5 guys blocking, didn't matter if it was Damari Austin running a sweep. Like they were getting like 8 carries a touch no matter what. Very, very bad. Very, very bad on Ole Miss defense part.
Yes, very bad. They're bad. They're not their defense is terrible. Now their offense is fun and they can score in a whole bunch of different ways, but their defense is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Extremely bad.
Yeah. All right, so there's a storyline about Auburn not being able to close defensively, first half versus second half. Is that actually true, Charlie 5? We will touch on that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. You've heard about the app, Upside. There's no reason not to download it. Look, from cringing at the pump to getting an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts, and it really hurts. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With every purchase, I'm earning cash back thanks to Upside. Are you doing the same, Charlie 5? I hope you are.
100%.
I hope you are. To get started, download the free Upside app and use my promo code LOCKED, LOCKED, and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That is using promo code LOCKED. Charlie 5, we are at Barberitos. We tried their new, what is it?
Sriracha queso.
Sriracha queso. It was awesome.
It's good, but you know what's not?
I like a strong, thick queso. You know what I'm saying?
It's very
It's got
thick.
some kick, but it's not your favorite thing here.
No. Give me shit. Can I share what my favorite thing is here now?
If it'll fit in the camera shot, yes.
I got an actual gallon of the Chipotle Ranch, which I used half of that container on my burrito bowl.
You couldn't even see the bowl.
So they just gave me the rest of the bowl. They said, congrats. Here you go.
I love it. Yeah, you have a Chipotle Ranch bucket. So, no, come check out our friends at Barberitos. Outstanding. Also
bucket.
very good for catering. You probably won't be given the bucket like Charlie 5 is, but we'll see. We'll see. Can't hurt to try. But, yeah, Barberitos, it's in Auburn, right next to the Auburn Mall over here in Auburn with a new location downtown coming very, very soon. Love our friends here at Barberitos. All right, so we had a listener question earlier, Charlie 5.
Yeah.
And the gist of it was, as part of the bye week discussion, any chance you could hit on the D-line and lack of rotating players during games? I know against Georgia, Harris and Jones started with Wooden at defensive end. Burks comes in to spell Harris or Jones. Seems like teams are able to run more on Auburn in the second half with more success. How much of that is tired legs? This isn't a new narrative. This has been happening for a while. You're saying it's bogus.
I don't want to say it's bogus, but the stats don't really bear that out. I think the second half collapses that we see are typically because we can't continue to score points. Like we score early and then we can't score anymore. If you take all the teams that we've played and take all the first halves and all the second halves, it's almost exactly the same. We've given up 101 points in the first half and 97 in the second half. And you're like, well, we got the two San Jose State and Mercer to start off the year. We actually gave up more points in the second half to those two teams than we did our first two SEC teams. So I don't know that it's necessarily a fresh legs thing as it just is when the offense can't go and the defense is on the field more, eventually it's going to break. Eventually it's going to break. And you saw that happen against Georgia, scored 28 in the first half. And Georgia scored – dadgummit, I had it almost memorized. Georgia scored a little bit more in the second half. other than that, you had Penn State that scored a little bit in the second half, but we couldn't move the ball at all. So it's just like you constantly kept putting them back out on the field. There was a couple of players he mentioned by name. I think Anichi Sledge, Marquise Robinson. Why aren't they getting more run? And I think a lot of guys, they're just not SEC players yet. I just don't think those guys are.
They're young. Yeah,
they're young. They haven't played at all, why put them out there now and risk their red shirt year that is very, very important. I just don't think those guys would be. I think it would do more harm than good to just throw those guys in the fire. But I know defense is not where we thought it would be, but I just not anywhere. To me, it's not anywhere near a contribution to the second half collapses that we see. It's when you score 0-0-0-0, you could give up. You could give up only 3 or 6 points. You're still going to lose if you can't score in the second half. And we just, to me, that's the genesis of our collapses versus defensive packages and things like that.
Yeah. You mentioned some of those guys that aren't really playing yet, like Sledge, like Emba, like Zacchaeus Walker. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that position group in the offseason. It's going to be, odds are, a new coaching staff with a new defensive line coach. A lot of these guys really seem to like defensive line coach Jimmy Brumbaugh. I don't think he'll be retained, but there's certainly a chance that he might. We'll see. But how much turnover will be at that position group? Because if you're the new guy and it's like, hey, stay, there's a ton of open spots available. And so it's going to be interesting because I think there's going to be some people that kind of felt slighted that they didn't get as many reps as possible. I think Zacchaeus Walker, if I had to pick one guy to transfer, it's probably Zacchaeus Walker. We'll see.
I think it's a good guess.
But also it's like, well, if you got new people coming in and like 3 out of the 4 start, only Jason Jones will be the only one really coming back next year. Like, why not stay? Because there's plenty of jobs available. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to follow.
You're going to have almost a complete – you're going to have to add almost a whole new defensive line – especially on the interior because of what all you lose. And it is I feel like it's very marketable right now to come play on the defensive line at Auburn. It should be based off selling time alone to the people that are on the roster, to possible portal guys. It should be an easy position to sell because of the mass amount of talent that should be exiting after this year.
Yeah, so, depending on who they add, they may have true freshmen starting at edge next year.
Because could. Edge is bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Dylan Brooks will be the only one on this roster back unless they somehow pull off a medical redshirt thing for Eku, which I'm not expecting that to work, but maybe they'll try it. Eku may not want to. Eku may be like, I'm good. I'm going to go to the league. But
I wouldn't come back if I were him.
Yeah, sure. And so there's going to be so much conversation and so many new additions on that defensive front. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun offseason.
It should be a lot of fun if going back to kind of what we talked about earlier, as long as things are being done and the wheels are in motion, and then when the clock ticks 0 on that last game and we got our ducks in a row and we're able to get a guy in place pretty quick, we could have a lot of fun in December because you're talking about you could really, honestly, you probably really need to add like 10 to 15 different guys from the portal to be able to be competitive on the offensive line, certain defensive line spots.
How many defensive linemen do you think they need to bring in? Just portal. I'm not talking about high school kids. Just portal.
I would say you need at least 3. You need at least 3.
I was going to say 4. Yeah.
3, possibly 4, with maybe 2 edges and 2 interior guys, or 1 edge. And
that still doesn't really feel like enough, if I'm being honest with you.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't, because you're just going to have so much inexperience.
And then on the O-line,
5. 5 portal guys.
Get a
minimum.
Left tackle, a left guard, a center, a right guard, and a right tackle. Yeah,
seriously,
it's so bad. And I made the joke with John Garcia when we were talking about like recruiting stuff, and he was on for a weekly recruiting segment, and I was like, "You don't think Auburn would take him?" He's like, "Well, you can't take 10 tackles," and I'm like, "Why not?"
If they'll come, bring them, move them inside.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
To me, that would be the most fun thing ever. With this portal thing, I'm a huge recruiting guy. So if that was my full-time job, like the portal aspect of it, being able to, I mean, it's like being an NFL GM. That's like, I think one of the coolest.
They can play right away. You sign them, they're at practice 3 weeks later for spring.
I think one of the coolest like scenarios to play out like in the future is to actually take an NFL GM and hire them as a college football head coach and see how it works. All you got to worry about is filling this roster up. You got NIL, which is salary caps. You got the portal, which is free agency. You got recruiting, which is, it's a little different, but and then hiring coaches. I mean, if that's 90% of the battle. Why is Saban so good? Saban's so good because he can go get that left tackle when he has to from Vandy. Yeah. He can go get Jahmyr Gibbs, the best running back that maybe has played at Alabama since, in my opinion, since Nick Saban's been there, the most explosive guy. That he can go get these pieces. I mean, and keep his roster, fill all the holes, and like that's what wins now, recruiting and filling your roster in the SEC. So that would be it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun off season. It could be a lot of fun.
What do you think they're working on the most during the bye week before we get to John Samuel Shenker?
What's that? Say that again. I just caught a cramp.
Oh.
Sorry.
No, you're good, buddy. What do you think? What do you think the biggest thing they're going to work on over the bye week is?
Gosh, hopefully not fumbling. Just
all right.
Work on the mesh. Like we got to get the mesh point now. If Robbie's biggest weapon is predicated off the read, like we got to get that. We got to get that figured out.
It's almost to the point where it's like you predetermine it before you call the play, like what they did with Nick in 13. Like that wasn't a read as much as people thought it was.
No, and we've got to figure this screen thing out. If we're going to run this screenplay to Tank, we've got to figure out some sort of mechanical way to make this thing work, because it seems like it's an absolute disaster every time we try to run it. And it's a lot of times it's set up. It's there.
It's so there, yeah.
Either they let one guy through a little too quick, or Robbie gets kind of wonky and off balance, and he throws a laser in there. And Tank doesn't have the best hands in general. So it's pretty much got to be right.
They're good enough to catch a screen, though. Like that's not the issue here, right?
Sure. But let's work on read option. Work on the
issue
mesh.
is Tank's not 7 feet tall. That's the issue. He's throwing to Walker Kessler out there. That's what's happening.
That's true. So work on that screen. Work on the mesh point. Work on read option, and then just try to get healthy.
All right. So in just a minute, Charlie 5, I asked John Samuel Shenker where he was when that argument happened after they scored the touchdown. Where he was, and also what he thought about Robbie throwing a fit on the sideline. So get his thoughts on both of those things in just a second. How can people find you, hear you, love you, all that stuff, buddy?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter at @the_Charlie_5 and the Locked On Auburn Discord, the Auburn Live, the Corner message board, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the Dad Bod Golf Pod.
That is Charlie 5, John Samuel Shenker coming up. But hey, our partners at Nissan, they have worked with us to create a new segment across the Locked On College Network titling Thrilling Moments, where we highlight the most exciting play from Auburn's weekend or throughout the history of the alma mater. But of course, this week's thrilling moment for the Auburn Tigers is when Tank Bigsby busted that 50-yard run. It was beautiful. Children cried. It was an incredible experience for all of us. We will always remember that beautiful run when Tank Bigsby is doing it at the next level. And we can always ask, why didn't we see more of that? This segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you in the all-new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at nissanusa.com. And joining us as he does every week, Auburn tight end John Samuel Shenker. These conversations brought to you by the Crawford Willis Group with eXp Realty. John Samuel, the bye week is here. What kind of give fans a little perspective on what a bye week means and what all the players can kind of do to recover and kind of take some time to themselves this week?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's a lot about recovery for the guys that have had a lot of playing time, guys that are beat up, little nicks and bruises, trying to get them healthy. You got 2 weeks to do that, which is a lot of time. So that's a big key. And then also we look back on ourselves and what we've done throughout the season. And we'll look and we'll try to fine tune some things this week, just 1 or 2 things, and really just get suited back up for the second half of the season, so to speak. But it's more about getting healthy and then just fine tune a few things dealing with us.
Yeah.
Not really much with the next opponent yet. Just really what we can do to get better.
John Samuel, it seems like the offense got going more against Ole Miss than it has really against anybody this season. What did you guys do different offensively last week versus the rest of the season?
Yeah, I thought we just executed the game plan better. I thought Robbie played a good game for the most part. He made good decisions with the ball, especially running. I thought we schemed them up pretty well as well. And we played physical in the run game, which when you want to beat Ole Miss, that's what you need to do is run the football, and we did that really well. Tank Jarquez had some really good games and really good carries. So it was really good to see that, to get back to what we believe we're good at, and that's running the football. So we were excited. We lost by 14, and a few of those were because of turnovers and things like that. So that's still the focus is the turnovers. Those kill you, especially when you're playing really good teams on the road.
From watching Tank, from your point of view, was that his best performance in an Auburn uniform in your mind?
He's had some really good ones. That's definitely a top tier one for sure. Just his explosiveness once he gets to the second level is really good. And we've known since he's been here, if you just get him to the second level, he can make some things happen. And I thought we did a really good job of that. Just allowing the run backs just don't have to worry about the front line, just being able to get to the second level and really make guys miss and, break those creases. So it was really exciting to see that.
John Samuel, a lot has been made after, I think it was the first touchdown that the offense scored. There was, and I think the TV broadcast made a bigger deal out of it than it actually was, but I'd love your thoughts on it. It sounds like there was an argument on the sideline between some of the skill position players. Was that really that big of a deal, or was that just ESPN doing ESPN things?
Yeah, it wasn't a huge deal. It was just miscommunication. We were excited. We just scored. We're trying to get back in the ball game.
Yeah.
So, guys came over and they were excited. And then, some guys were just talking about staying focused. I think guys got misconstrued with what we were meaning by that. Yeah, it wasn't a huge deal. It's just, tempers were high and we were really locked in and focused and, a lot of energy and things like that. And I just think it got a little more blown out, which that happens, on TV and things like that. But no, nothing came of it. It was all good afterwards.
What do you think? I know you mentioned Robbie playing well, but the cameras caught him being pretty upset on the sideline when they put TJ in for that drive. And then Robbie obviously came in after that. But a young player still kind of learning how to control emotions. You being an upperclassman and a captain, did you say anything to the young quarterback, or did you kind of let him do his own thing?
Well, I didn't see most of the reactions till after the game on Instagram and things like that. But when TJ came in, obviously I didn't get to see what his reaction was till later. But yeah, that's things we work on. Obviously, the guy's a competitor; he wants to play, and and all those things. But when things happen, you can't, especially when TVs are all over the place. That's what they're going to look for is things like that to create stories and stuff like that. So yes, I love the competitive spirit, him wanting to play and everything, but there is a fine line there. And, he'll learn that as he gets older and plays more games, just on how to not show that emotion in certain situations when things happen.
Right. These weekly conversations with John Samuel brought to you by our friends at the Crawford Willis Group at eXp Realty. If you need any type of real estate service, this team is the group of people that you want in your corner. We just recently closed on our old house last week, actually, and they were there and made sure we were comfortable and answered any questions that we may have had, and got an outstanding offer on our old home and an outstanding price for our new home. And so glad all that's behind us. Thanks to our friends at eXp Realty. They do such a great job, whether you're looking for your second home or investment property. It's all a significant decision in your life, a lot of money at stake, and you want to make sure that it's protected. And the Crawford Willis Group at eXp Realty does that. Their motto says it all, converting clients into friends. So be sure to check them out at crawfordwillisgroup.com. John Samuel, there's a narrative going around, and this is the folks that are kind of anti Bryan Harsin, about how the team he's lost the team. He's lost the locker room. And I don't know how you can watch Saturday's game with all the passion and you guys being down 21-0 and then climbing back and tying it up just a few minutes later that believes that, right? I mean, all that is craziness, right? You're in the locker room. You're leading this group. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game speaks for itself. You know, if we lost it, the game would have been a blowout quickly. And, you know, guys are fighting like that. Yeah, that is far from the truth. We are still battling hard. We're playing hard, believe in everything we're doing. So, yeah, I mean, people are going to do that when you lose games and stuff like that. Like, that's going to happen. But no, he has not lost anybody. We were fighting. You know, we're going to get ready, get healthy this week, and then we're fighting on and playing against a good Arkansas team next week.
Is it hard to shut out all the noise? I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, John Samuel, but is this locker room still pretty focused on the task at hand?
Yeah, I think it gets harder and harder, guys, that just, you know, in my opinion, if in the season, it's better if, you know, guys, if you're going to be influenced by it, just turn it off and let it be. Because, you know, those guys aren't playing, you know, you just don't want stuff like that to seep into the locker room and let it spread. I thought we'd done a good job to this point. Now you have time off and things like that. People go home and they'll hear from their families and all the opinions of everybody that's not on the football field. So it can be a challenge. It really can, especially when you're losing football games. So that'll be a huge key coming back next week, is just being able to focus in on what we have to do as a team, and because we're the only ones out there, and that's the big thing that guys need to understand and be able to see that come to fruition.
So we talked about this on the show earlier this week, John Samuel, but a lot of these pass catchers, a lot of these young Auburn wide receivers have been really impressive. Jay Fair got his first reception as an Auburn Tiger. The more we see of Camden Brown, the more people want him on the field. And then Amari Kelly's a guy that has really surprised me in a positive way over the course of the season. What's impressed you about some of these young pass catchers on offense?
Yeah, we knew in fall camp when those guys started to play, they were going to be really special. A lot of speed. I think Amari and Jay Fair are top tier speed guys.
Okay.
So that's going to be really exciting to see, especially for them in the future. But yeah, those guys, you know, they're young, so there's certain things they do in practice that we're trying to build and, you know, just focus all the time whenever we're in the facility. But great guys, and they're super talented. So I do believe the wide receiver room's in a good spot moving forward with the young guys. Those three guys will definitely help this university moving forward.
Sure. John Samuel, best of luck with the bye week, recovering and focusing on the rest of the season, including Arkansas coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium next weekend, man. Really appreciate your time, as always, bud.
Thank you, War Eagle.
That's another one in the books. Thank you to John Samuel. Thank you to everybody who joined the show today. And we will be back tomorrow right here on Locked On Auburn.